Hey everyone, it's Leanne, one of the TAs, and I'm going to be reviewing the humerus in this video. So essentially the structure of this video is going to be that I'm going to go through and ask you guys a couple questions about the landmarks of the humerus from multiple different views, anterior, posterior, and lateral. And it's essentially going to be a form of a quiz. So at the end, I'll be going over all the answers. So if you're not feeling entirely comfortable with your knowledge of the humerus and you'd rather just go through the landmarks with me, feel free to skip ahead of the quiz and go through those answers with me if you're more comfortable doing that. If not, I'm going to get started with the questions now. And I am going to go probably a little bit faster than it would take you to answer these questions for timing purposes. So please feel free to pause the video if you need some more time, and then just restart it when you're done answering the question. Okay, so to start us off, this is the anterior view of the humerus. So I'm going to start with asking you, is this a left or right humerus? Okay, and now I will go through and label some of these landmarks. You can't see every landmark from your appendicular upper extremity bone list from this view, so there will be a couple that I'm skipping with this one, but I'll go over them in some of the other views. Okay, so this will be 1. This yellow portion here will be 2. This reddish purplish color will be 3. This lime green color here, this will be 4. This long yellow part will be 5. Okay, that brings us out of the proximal portion. We're going to go towards the distal portion of the humerus. This here will be 6. This will be 7. This purplish part will be 8. This light blue will be 9. And this orange part here at the bottom is going to be 10. Okay, so I know I went a little bit fast, so if you need some extra time, feel free to pause the video here. And now I will go over the answers. Okay, so to start us off, this is a left humerus. So the way we know that, excuse me, the way we know that is this portion here, which is actually going to be the head. That's the answer number 1, the head of the humerus. This is where this is going to articulate with the rest of the body. It's a specific bone that I'm going to ask you about later. But if we know that this is the body, we know that this has to be the medial side of the humerus. So knowing that that's the medial side, and this is the anterior view, if you orient that, kind of use your imagination, kind of put that bone on your body, you can tell that this is, in fact, a left humerus. All right, so number 1, as we said, is the head. And on a quiz, I would definitely recommend putting the head of the humerus, seeing as there are multiple heads throughout the body on different bones. Being specific is always better. Okay, number 2, that is going to be our anatomical neck. And I believe on Visible Body, on the Atlas app, this is actually just labeled as the neck. And there is another neck that we're going to go over in a bit, but Visible Body does just label this as the neck. So I want you guys to be sure that you are labeling this as the anatomical neck on a quiz because that is definitely important. Okay, number 3, that is going to be your lesser tubercle. Oh, sorry. And number 4 is going to be our surgical neck. So you definitely want to include surgical and anatomical before neck because differentiating between those two is definitely important on a quiz or on a practical. Okay, number 5, that's going to be the shaft. And like the head, because there are multiple shafts throughout the body, you want to, on a quiz or on a practical, you want to put that this is the shaft of the humerus. That's very important. Okay, so down here at the distal end, 6 is going to be your medial epicondyle. And we said that because this is the body here, and that the head is articulating with a bone here, that this is the medial side. Saw that here, I'll highlight that. This is the medial side. So seeing as that is the medial side, we know that this here, that is going to be our medial epicondyle. Okay, 7 is our coronoid fossa. And there are multiple fossas on the distal end of the humerus. So the way that I kind of remember which one's which, I'm going to go in a different color here. What I do is I remember that the coronoid fossa is in the center. So it starts with a C. You can see that. And here I'll zoom in a little bit. See, that here is a C for the center. That's your coronoid. Not to be confused with coracoid process of the scapula. Okay, then 8, another fossa, we have our radial fossa, and that is actually going to be an articulation point with another bone, which I'm not going to give away yet because I do want to ask you a question about that later, but that is going to be an articulation point, so that's a major hint. Okay, 9 is going to be the capitulum. Don't confuse that with the lateral epicondyle, which you can't really see, but is way over here. You can kind of see that darker purplish color over here. This is going to be your lateral epicondyle, but you can't really see it from the anterior view, which is why I didn't label it here. But 9 is going to be your capitulum. Okay, and then finally, last but not least, we have the trochlea. And this landmark kind of ranges from the anterior view, goes all the way down around the distal portion, and it goes into the posterior view, which we'll see in the next slide. But I'll zoom out for a moment. This here is your anterior portion of the humerus. Okay, sorry, my handwriting got a little sloppy there. I apologize. Okay, so this leads us to the posterior portion. So I'm going to label a couple of landmarks again, just so you guys can orient yourself. Some will be new, some will be old, but I'm not going to be labeling all of the old ones just for timing purposes again, just the major ones. Okay, so we'll start with this as 1. This is 2. The long yellow part is 3. This is a new one. This is going to be 4. Can only be seen from the posterior portion. Okay, and we'll label this as 5. Okay, so here I'll give you a better view. So that is numbers 1 through 5. Feel free to quiz yourself. If not, and pause the video. If not, I'm going to go over the answers now. So here we are, proximal portion again. 1 is going to be the head of the humerus on the medial side. 2, that is going to be your greater tubercle. So that is on the opposite side of the lesser tubercle. But as you can see, so knowing that this is the greater tubercle on the posterior portion, the other one we could see the lesser tubercle from, sorry, I don't know if I messed that up, greater tubercle from the posterior portion, lesser tubercle from the anterior portion, and we know that this here, the head is on the medial side, then we have to conclude that the tubercles are going to be on the lateral side. So we will be able to see both from the lateral view, which will be coming up next. Okay, 3, scroll down a little bit. That is going to be your shaft of the humerus. 4, that's our new one down here. This is going to be your olecranon fossa. That is going to be another articulation point with another bone, which we will go over later. And finally, 5, we have that trochlea. Like I mentioned, you can see it from both the anterior and posterior view. It goes all the way around the distal half of the humerus, which is why you can see it from both views. This here is the trochlea. Okay, so that here, folks, is the posterior portion. All right, so lastly, we are going to go over the lateral portion. So we went over mostly every landmark at this point. There's just a few that you couldn't see from the pictures of the anterior and posterior portions or views that I saw that I posted here. So we're just going to go over a couple repeats, and then we'll go over a couple questions. Okay, so 1 I will label as this. Sorry. This here will be 2, that pink portion there. This gray portion is going to be 3. I'll get the laser. Just so you know, I'm talking about this long line right here. Okay, this here is 4. And we'll do, on the distal end, we'll do this one as 5, that purple bluish kind of thing there. And this will be 6. Okay, so this is it. Feel free to pause here if I went a little too fast. And now we will go over the answers. So for 1, that is going to be your lesser tubercle. Can be seen from the anterior view. 2, we have the greater tubercle, which can be seen from the posterior view. And then in between the 2 of those, you have your intertubercular, long word, groove. Or, if you prefer, like I do, your bicipital groove, because intertubercular is a long word and sometimes difficult to spell. So I personally prefer bicipital, but again, both of them will be just fine on a quiz or a practical. Okay, 4, that is going to be your deltoid tuberosity. Kind of sits there, distal to the intertubercular groove. Okay, 5 is when we went over before, that is going to be your capitulum. And 6 is the new one, that is your lateral epicondyle. Ooh, my handwriting's getting rough. But yeah, so that is all of the landmarks. The lateral epicondyle, you can't see the medial epicondyle from this view because it's the lateral view. But that lateral epicondyle sits directly lateral to the capitulum. So don't confuse the capitulum with the lateral condyle. The capitulum sits just inferior to the radial fossa. So that should help you out a little bit, while the lateral condyle sits just lateral to the radial fossa. Okay, that is all of the landmarks. I just want to ask you 2 questions before we complete the review. So number 1 is going to be, what bone and what landmark does the proximal end of the humerus articulate with? So the answer to that is going to be the glenoid cavity of the scapula. Okay, second question, 2-parter, 2A and 2B. Ooh, sorry about that. Question 2 is going to be, what 2 bones does the humerus articulate with at the distal end? The answer to that is going to be your radius and your ulna. And that is it for the humerus. So I hope you guys find this helpful in quizzing yourself and studying for your quizzes and practicals. Please let me or the other TAs or your professors know if you have any more questions or if you'd like to review this at all. We're always happy to help. And if not, I hope this is a helpful resource. And yeah, just please let us know if you have any other questions. Good luck with your studying.